Ahlan wa sahlan wapenzi watazamaji, na karibuni katika the NURU morning show here at Mizpah TV, where we always keep the fire of your altar burning. Ni asubuhi njema, tunamshukuru Mungu kwa sababu ya wema wake, amezidi kuwa mwaminifu. Ninatumai ya kwamba umeweza kuamka ukiwa buheri wa afya. Katika kipindi hiki tutaenda kuangazia mambo ambayo yanatukia katika taifa letu na pia katika dunia kwa ujumla. Na katika studio zetu siku ya leo, Angela, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine.
You're well?
Niko mzima, nashukuru Mungu. Yeah, how is your morning?
My morning is good but a little bit cold. But we thank God for each and every season.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Unaweza wasalimu watazamaji.
A very good morning to your viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's shows. We're really honored and glad to know that there's somebody out there who woke up early in the morning to tune in for today's show. This is the current affairs segment to make sure that you stay updated of what is happening that is in our country and beyond. Kwa hivyo, you can interact with us on 0799200100. Utuambie unatutazama ukiwa pande gani. I'll be so happy to hear from you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And before we dive into our conversation today, we are going to have the verse of the day. And our today's verse comes from the book of 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 6. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 6. And the Bible says, "For this reason I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying of my hands." For this reason I remind you to fan into flames the gift of God, which is in you through the laying of hands. Katika verse ambayo iko in 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 6, neno la Mungu linasema ya kwamba we should fan into flame the gift of God. And katika the Keepers of the Flame Summit ambayo iko katika mlima wa Mizpah, yesterday we were told that the beauty of the fire is in the flame. Ya kwamba wakati ambapo unachochea kipawa ambacho uko nacho, it is when you will get the full potential ya kipawa ambacho Mungu ametupa. You know, many of us tumepewa vipawa, lakini tumekaa na vipawa hivyo, we are not being useful with those gifts ambazo Mungu alitupa. But the moment you take that initiative ya kuweza kuchochea kipawa ambacho umepewa, it is a moment ambayo uta realize that you have a lot of potential in that gift that God has given you. You know, many of us huwa tunataka big platforms. You may be wewe unaweza kuwa you are an evangelist, but you're looking for an opportunity to preach even in the television, but that is not the purpose of God. You know, sometimes inafaa unaanzia pale chini. Just begin the place ambayo uko. Chochea kipawa chako. If it is preaching, preach. Anza kuhubiria wale watu ambao mko nao katika your area, the place that you are living. Just preach, because at that moment that you are doing that, you are fanning your gift into flame, because the beauty of the fire iko katika flame. So if hautachochea moto ambao uko katika kipawa chako, it will go off. So the moment wewe mwenyewe unaanza kuenda and you take that initiative of fanning that fire, kwa sababu you know, wakati ambapo kuni miale imeweza kuisha, it is very easy for that wood to go off, the fire to go off. But the moment you just unapepetea, unachochea kile kipawa ambacho uko nacho, let me tell you, it will burn. And the beauty of fire is in the flame. So may you be encouraged. Ile kipawa ambacho uko nacho, don't think it is kipawa ambacho uko nacho, it is not good kama ya mtu mwingine. The one ambayo Mungu amekupa, just use it for the glory of God. Fan it. Pepetea. Kama wewe ni mwalimu wa Sunday school, usiangalia kwamba you're not recognized. Our apostolic leader, Apostle Jesse Karanja, aliweza kusema that intercessors hata wakati mwingine huwa waonekani in platforms, but they work behind the scenes. But let me tell you, the impact ambayo wako nayo katika the body of Christ, it is a very big impact. So even you, usiangalia kwamba unatambulika ama utambuliki, fan your gift into fire. Now we are going to dive in katika magazeti, but before we dive in, this show is proudly brought to you by Mizpah Prayer Center. It is a place of prayer ambapo unakuja as a group and also as an individual, mahali ambapo utakuwa na mahali pa kuweza kuwa na uwepo wa Mungu na kuweza kuomba. It is a place ambayo when you just come in this place, you will have an atmosphere of prayer. Na pia katika wiki hii from Wednesday, we have the Keepers of the Flame prayer summit ambayo imekuwa ikiendelea, and let me tell you, there is a lot of revelation that is going here at Mizpah Prayer Center. Na tuliona jana tukiambia that the beauty of flame or the beauty of fire is in the flame. So wakati ambapo utaweza even today as we have the climax of the keepers of the flame summit, prayer summit, may you have that burden ya kwamba utaweza kukuja, and may you come and also catch that fire. And now I have the standard,
and I have the Daily Nation with me.
Yeah, we are going to start with the Daily Nation.
All right. Today's Daily Nation, tutangalia, naona wame highlight that is matters to do with politics. Kuna matters to do with legal and crime. We have that is matters to do with leadership and governance. We have matters to do with the health sector. That is something that we have been mentioning. Kuna mambo ya elections. These are some of the matters that we'll be checking out on today's Daily Nation. But let's start with the main headline. That is page 1 of the Daily Nation. The headline reads that state's ruthless purge of rights defenders raises alarm. And hapa sasa wameandika that is activists under siege. And you know, in the recent months, that is even in the year 2024, in the year 2025, tumeona human rights defenders in Kenya, in Tanzania, and Zimbabwe, they have faced arrest, deportation, abductions, and intimidation. And that's why ukiangalia the headline inaangazia that is activists, people like that is Brian Kagoro, Kiza Besije, we have Bob Jagi, Maria Sarungi, we have Nicholas Oyo, we have Martin Mavenja, and Mwabili Mwagodo. And some of them were denied entry. Kama si kukua denied entry, some of them were abducted, some of them were detained, some of them were deported in what rights group called a growing crackdown in decent. So this is something that they have violated, something that have been happening to these activists. And right now, you can see that in addition to that, that is part of the headline to read that a Zimbabwean, a lawyer, Brian Kagoro, landed at Nairobi JKA last Sunday for what would have been a routine reception by immigration officials. Instead, he was denied entry, detained, and expelled. On the same day, Tanzanian rights defender Mshabaha Hamza was enduring a harrowing ordeal 30 kilometers away. Their plight adds to a troubling pattern of persecution and voices against government excesses. So I don't know for how long we're going to experience this. That is matters to do with deportation, the activists being detained, because ndio maana unapa that is the civil society groups are raising a lot of concerns, and this doesn't sound good at all. No, ukiangalia the people that are expected to protect the people that are expected to make sure that there is space, there is freedom of expression, because that is also what is in the constitution. Ukiangalia chapter 1 of the constitution inaongelea pia freedom of expression, but governments are involved and have largely defended their action as lawfully and security related. But these are the only statements that they're giving without explaining how watu wamekosea kivipi and why do they deserve this. And the funny thing, they're not using the constitution to defend themselves. And we know this is bringing a great impact because it is shrinking that is a democratic space. And appear there'll be fear among activists and journalists, especially in our country right now. Unajua tuko hiyo season ya campaign, next year itakuwa election. So what will happen? Will there be freedom of expression, ama watu wataendelea kunyamazishwa, until when? And pia ukiangalia that is tunaona the civil society groups, they're raising concerns. It means that the international human rights pressure may increase, na pia kunaweza kuwa na that is regional diplomatic attention, because let's say an activist wa Kenya ameenda that is in Tanzania, amekatazwa kuingia ama amekuwa abducted huko. So it means that there will be diplomatic tension which may affect that is the diplomatic relationships that we have with other countries and the East Africa community as well. So that story is on page 4 and 5. I'm not going to read the whole of it because it's just what I've said. They have violated the key event happenings that is since 2024, the year 2025 up to date, and what is happening. So let's see if the government is going to act on it and make sure that there'll be justice to these activists. Yeah. On other stories, you have something?
In the standard page, page 2, we have a very interesting story ambayo imeangaziwa katika gazeti hili. And yesterday we saw there were many by elections ambazo zilikuwa zinafanywa katika taifa letu, and katika gazeti hili la The Standard we see violence and claim of voter bribery Ma ward by election, and we see that in West Kabaras ward by election in Malava, Kakamega County narrowed down to a fierce contest between the UDA and the DCP parties with claims of voter bribery and cases of violence. And we katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia matukio ambayo yalitukia katika vituo vya upigaji wa kura katika eneo la Kabras, and at least 12,000 registered voters started streaming into 27 polling stations across the world around 6:30 to elect the MCA to succeed David Ndakwa, and who was elected as the MP after the death of Malulu Injendi, who was the MP of Malava. And we see in this katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia some of the incidences ambazo ziliweza kufanyika katika uchaguzi ambao ulifanyika katika that ward, and that there were claims of bribery, voter bribery and even violence that came katika maeneo haya ambayo yalikuwa katika upigaji wa kura ambao ulikuwa unaendelea katika eneo hili la West Kabras. And katika gazeti hili pia wameweza kuangazia that however MP Ndakwa and the principal secretary of higher education Beatrice Nyangala accused the DCP of interrupting, they accused the DCP of disrupting the election. The MP claimed that the vehicle had been vandalized and some of the supporters were injured. And this is something ambayo iliweza kuzua tumbo joto katika mitandao ya kijamii, because a lot of people questioned on the security as we are heading to the electioneering period. And some of the things ambazo zilikuwa zimeangaziwa hapa, we know there were contestants from the Jubilee the DCP party, and also we had other contestants that came from the UDA party. And however, the DCP officials blamed the government and the UDA members for bribing the residents to vote for Alphas Shalaka. And the DCP Western Coordinator Seth Bethwell alleged that the UDA officials and agents were caught bribing voters and accused the police of shielding them. And this is something ambayo ilikuwa katika gazeti hili limeweza kuangazia, even the security was very tight, but the incidences that were happening katika macho ya the security system. And katika gazeti hili pia wameweza kuangazia other elections ambazo ziliweza kufanyika yesterday, and we saw that in Isiolo heavy rains, voter empathy and prevailing drought situation, so few people that came out to cast their votes. Na katika eneo hili na maeneo mengine ambayo yaliweza kuwa na uchaguzi, we saw there was a very low turnout katika wale watu ambao waliweza kujitokeza kupiga kura, na many of the residences have migrated from their villages to other areas in Isiolo County, and still they have counted and that still have pasture and that has heavily contributed to the low turnout of voters. And they have given a lot of reasons ambazo ziliweza kusababisha low turnout katika maeneo hayo ambayo yalikuwa na uchaguzi. And we see even mambo ambayo yameweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti hili, it shows that there are people ambao wameweza kutoa their comments about the election ambayo iliweza kufanyika siku ya jana, and many other things ambazo zimekuwa highlighted katika gazeti hili. When you get your newspaper, you'll be able to see how the voting process was done in those wards ambazo zilikuwa na uchaguzi. Yes, Angela.
Okay, and away from that, let's dive into the health sector. That is one of the highlights that I had mentioned earlier, matters to do with legal and crime plus the health sector, that is SHA. And it reads, corruption, you know, this is something that is killing our country slowly by slowly. And SHA fraud, the DPP, that is the Director of Public Prosecution, wants 15 hospital owners charged. So it means that the ongoing investigation, and you know that is the Social Health Authority, replace that is the NHIF to improve that is healthcare financing. And now since its implementation, there are allegations of fraudulent claims. Tumeona kumekuwa na that is ghost hospitals, fake surgeries, what else? Kumekuwa na that is unapata umeenda hospitali, umeenda kutibiwa that is outpatient, unakiwa inpatient, and you know an inpatient is really expensive. Kumekuwa na that is inflated billing when that has really affected that is the patients, and that's why ukiangalia hapa it is that the Director of Public Prosecution is moving into charging 15 hospital owners because of these matters. And in addition to that, the story is on page 2, and it reads that investigations, some are operating unlicensed facilities, and then it reads Shafraud. That's how the DPP wants now the hospitals to be charged, that is 15 hospital owners. And the Director of Public Prosecution, Renson Ingonga, has recommended the prosecution of 15 private hospitals proprietors suspected receiving millions of shillings in fraudulent payments from the social government insurance, that is the SHA system itself. This is after they did an audit, they did a review of what is happening when it comes to the health sector, when it comes to that is matters to do with spending and finances, because tunaona kumekuwa na pesa zimekuwa zikipotea, zingine hazijulikani ziko wapi. Don't forget that is about the 11 billion that is still missing, and there's no explanation. Probably this is what is happening, and you know this bring a great impact when it comes to the health sector, because it is inaonyesha that if they continue to do more audits, at least kutakuwa na that is tighter controls, and then this is going to keep the hospitals in check when it comes to spending finances, when it comes to the health sector. And you know, if you're having that in fraud cases and corruption in hospitals, it means that the services in the hospitals could slow temporarily. At the end of the day, mwenye anaumia that is the common mwananchi. So it means that there is something to be done. And at least this is a good thing. It's showing that the government is showing that is zero tolerance when it comes to corruption and the SHA system itself. So let's see what will happen, because they have not yet arrested these people, they have not yet charged these people. He just mentioned that they are going to charge these 15 hospital owners. So let's see if sheria itachukuliwa mkononi ama they're just giving words.
Yeah, and also in the Standard we have a very interesting story ambayo imeangaziwa katika gazeti hili, and we've seen recently there have been claims of security in our borders, and katika gazeti hili the headline reads how rogue officials gave warlords business crooks Kenyan passports. And this is something ambayo imeweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti hili, na katika picha ambayo iko katika gazeti hili we see President William Ruto and his deputy Kithure Kindiki with controversial Zimbabwean businessman Wicknell Chivayo at State House Sagana recently. And katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia mambo ambayo yamekuwa yakitukia katika taifa letu, and we've seen a lot of issues emerging in the immigration sector ambayo imeweza kukua put on spot because of offering passports to people ambao wamekuwa sanctioned even in their countries. Na katika gazeti hili the government officials are on spot after details emerge that several foreigners acquired passports illegally. Na katika gazeti hili wameweza kuarifu ya kwamba many of the people ambao business people or the people that are seemed to be terrorists wameweza kupokea their passports from high profile government offices. And katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia some of the people ambao they acquired their passports illegally, and some of the people wamekuwa wakiweza kuelezewa ya kwamba they've been a threat to some of the countries that are our neighboring countries, and yet as the Kenyan government went ahead on to give them Kenyan passports for them even to go to those countries ambazo zimeweza kuzunguka taifa la Kenya. And katika gazeti hili the foreigners include warlords, shadowy figures and controversial business seeking the paperwork ambazo waliweza kupokea katika taifa letu. Na katika gazeti hili inasema details have emerged how rogue immigration officials allegedly acting on instruction from senior government officials met figures aided Sudan's most wanted warlords Muhammad Hamadan Dagalo Musa alias Hemedti. And some of katika gazeti hili wameangazia some of the people ambao waliweza kupokea their passports even in our Kenyan territory, and later on they shifted to South Sudan, ambayo iliweza kuleta mtafaruku between the Kenyan government and also the South Sudan government, ambapo waliweza ku accuse the Kenyan government of helping some of the people that have been sanctioned from their nation to access their country. Na katika gazeti hili pia wameweza kuangazia that investigation by the Standard have established how the government deployed an intricate web to underhead dealings involving power individuals within the security system, and we also have operatives from the Rapid Support Force and the Departments of Immigration who concluded to process the passports. And some of the people ambao waliweza kupea their passports wameweza kutajwa katika gazeti hili. And there was allegation that the Kenyan government is also linked to RSF, ambao President Ruto aliweza kukutana na kiongozi wao. Na katika gazeti hili there was a controversial Zimbabwe businessman ambaye picha lake liko hapa katika gazeti hili, that Wicknell Chikavo is also said to have applied and his application is still processed. And this is something that is raising a lot of concern katika gazeti hili on the security of our territories and also the diplomatic issues that we are having in the Eastern African community. Ni kwa sababu the South Sudan government accused Kenyan government for aiding some of the people that are sanctioned from their country to accessing back to their country. And in application, we have applicants that indicated their birth of place as Nyala in North Sudan, while the two were born in Khartoum. Some of the people ambao waliweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti hili, many of them are from South Sudan, ambao walikuwa sanctioned from their nation, and later on the Kenyan government went ahead to give them the Kenyan passports, and later on they were able to access South Sudan. And katika gazeti hili inasema ya kwamba South Sudan, the Sudan's government condemned the meeting, recalling ambassadors' protest accusing Kenya of interfering with an internal affairs. At the same, South Sudan banned Kenyan tea, leading to massive revenue loss, running into billions of shillings and impacting Kenyan farmers and traders. And this is something ambayo imeweza kuzua tumbo joto katika eneo hili la East Africa, ni kwa sababu some of the people ambao waliweza kupata passports, if you look at the cover page of the Standard, you'll be able to them. And we have the Director General of Immigration Service, Evelyn Cheluget, that has been highlighted here in the front page. Na pia tunaona we have Muhammad Hamadan Dagalo. We also have other controversial people ambao wamekuwa sanctioned from their countries na ambao waliweza kupokea their passports from the Kenyan government. And this is something that is raising a lot of concern, Angela, because kama hawa watu wamekuwa sanctioned in their countries, alafu they come to Kenya and get passports za taifa letu. Do you think that our security of our borders iko safe?
No, it's not safe, and it also means that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they need to do he needs to do his job effectively, and because you know this will affect the reputation or bring an impact to the reputation of our country itself, which might draw away investors because of that. So something needs to be done.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And on the Daily Nation, that is page 1, tulikuwa tusema tutaangalia pia that is matters to do with the IBC sector. And unajua tumekaribia, that is season ya elections, and it reads that 2027 polls, how an extra 9,000 polling stations will be distributed. Don't forget that tulikuwa tumeona that is the IBC walikuwa na mpango ya kupunguza, that is the polling station, but it seems that things are changing now, be having that is extra 9,000 polling stations. And you know this is a good thing, because you know back then that is Kenya population growth means more voters, more population, more voters, and the electoral body is planning ahead that is coming 2027, because they only have right now next year itakuwa season election, and the reason as to why they're increasing that is the polling stations. They believe that it's going to reduce congestions, and I agree with them. This is true, and also is going to improve that is accessibility to the polling stations. Ndio mwananchi pale nje, you as a Kenyan citizen, you'll not have an excuse as to why you never voted, and it's going to avoid that is long queues. And in addition to that, it reads that Electoral Commission has moved away from using that census data to improve the accuracy of its new voters registration. So you can see that apart from increasing that is the polling station, we are seeing that is the aspects of digitalization, which is a good thing, because kutakuwa na the accuracy of data, and like that is using census. You know, census was not that accurate, but at least you can say those people really tried a lot. And so ukiangalia right now, it means that distribution planning is underway, and as well that is budget implications are high. Don't forget that is the ABC walikuwa may request uongezewe that is more finances, because they believe that the current budget that they have is not enough. So will that be possible? Because if they're going to add that is extra 9,000 police stations, it means that there is a budget yenye inafaa kuongezewa, na tuliona ilikuwa imekataliwa. So let's see what will happen if that will be possible. And according to a document, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that is the IEBC, presented to Parliament, this additional polling station will raise a number for the 2027 general election to 55,393, up from 46,229 in the 2022 elections. This is very interesting. And tunaona pia kuna that is the IBC chairperson is called Erastus Ethicon, stated that the mapping of the projected new polling stations will be determined by the outcome of the continuous voters registration, and currently it's happening in all the 290 constituencies offices that we have that is in our country, and the commission currently is targeting to register that is 6.3 million new voters before that is the 2027 general election. Are you part of the 6.3 million? If you have not registered as a voter, please make sure that you do that as a Kenyan citizen. And pia naona hapa pia Mr. Edicon announced that the commission plans to retain the existing voters registration, that is 22.3 million plus the projected new voters based on the national population registration data, translating to 28.63 million voters. So, you know, this is something that is good, because it's going to bring a great impact, a positive one. There'll be a voter turnout, because if you have that is more polling stations, it means that more people will show up, because they know that they're not going to go and queue for the long lines, and pia it improve that is election efficiency. But pia the challenges, as I mentioned, it's going to increase that is cost and political disputes over distribution, that is when it comes to the counties. And talking about that is distribution, the IEBC says that it will stick to 700 limit, that is the kits, and the Election Act states that the number of voters per polling station for the purposes of providing efficient and effective conduct of elections shall not exceed that is 700 and 700. So let's see how they're going to make sure that they strike a balance when it comes to that, so that that is political disputes when it comes to the counties and the distribution of the kits in the 900,000 polling stations that will be added.
Yeah, and also in the Standard we have a very interesting story here and a very sad one. Katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia the incident that happened in Shakahola, and katika gazeti hili there was one of the witnesses ambaye aliweza kushare about the experience ambayo alikuwa nayo, and we saw a lot of things that were happening around the case that was against Paul Mackenzie, as highlighted here in the Standard. And we see that Paul Mackenzie trusted security guard turned into 4. Enos Amanya boarded a flight and his wife to Shakahola immediately after selling his land in Nairobi Kasarani area. And katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia matukio ambayo yalitukia from Enos Amanya that testified yesterday for the second day before the Chief Magistrate Alex Idhuku in Mombasa on February 25th 2026. Na katika gazeti hili wameweza kusema Mwaura informed was inquired also there was manipulation where that Enos, after selling his land for 700,000, Amanya said that he felt rich and generous spending money on food for Mackenzie and his associates. He had been promised another parcel of land in Shakahola. And we see even katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia some of the properties ambazo aliweza and some of the amount of the amount of money that Enos aliweza kuuza shamba lake, and he spent the whole of that money in that process in that syndicate ambayo iliweza kufanyika kule katika the Shakahola where the leader of that church ambayo iliweza kuleta mtafaruku Paul Mackenzie aliweza kukuwa accused, and we saw that the case ambayo Paul Mackenzie, it is still on process. And yesterday Amanya told Chief Magistrate Alex Idhuku that Mwaura duped him into booking the flight, and we've seen katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia all the expenditure ambayo Enos after selling his parcel of land aliweza kutumia katika eneo la Shakahola, and he accused Mwaura for conning him out of 100,000. He said that he paid for the land and he has been promised in Shakahola. Amanya also sent Mackenzie 100,000 to buy land on his behalf, and this is something ambayo iliweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti, imeweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti hili kwa undani, and we saw this is something that is raising a lot of concern, kwa sababu katika gazeti hili there was confessions ambazo ziliweza kutolewa with na Amanya, and Amanya claimed that despite paying twice the land, neither Mackenzie nor Mwaura delivered the promised land to him. And this is katika gazeti hili limeweza kuonekana it is a fraud case ambayo iliweza and manipulation ambayo iliweza kutokea katika eneo la Shakahola. And katika gazeti hili wamesema pia Mwaura later told me that he had approached the village elders to buy land, but they informed him that Mackenzie was only leasing the land and not purchasing it. And kumeonekana katika gazeti hili pia kama ya vile imeangaziwa on January 18th 2026 Amanya also confessed to killing 191 people, and this is something that is so sad. In a murder case before the High Court, he told the court that his wife introduced him to Mackenzie in 2019, and that he had drawn to his teachings about the second coming of Jesus and his rejection to formal education and health sector and healthcare. And this is something ambayo iliweza kuangaziwa kwa undani mwaka uliopita, kwa sababu a lot of people lost their lives in this place katika eneo la Shakahola, and it was something that was considered as religious extremism ambayo iliweza kuendelea katika eneo hili. And we see even katika gazeti hili something that is so sad. Amanya eventually he told the court that his wife Amanya eventually settled in Shakahola where he lost all his money, 6 children and his wife. And he also testified against his wife and his young brother David Amanya, and also charged against alongside Mackenzie. And this is something ambayo imeweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti hili la The Standard, ambapo wameweza kuangazia kwa undani some of the things and the incidences that happened in that syndicate ambayo iliweza kutokea katika eneo la Shakahola. Na wakati ambapo you will be able to get your newspaper, you will be able to read all the things ambazo zimeweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti hili kwa undani. Yes, Angela. That's
bad. What are the keepers of the flame?
Yeah, it is very true, because many of us, if you don't have the good foundation, you may be manipulated, because religious extremism is something that is at a rise in our nation. So we really need a lot of discernment, because unaona watu wengi, if you see 191 people, somebody confessing of killing 191 people, it is something that is so sad.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, as you mentioned about sad stories, that is page 26 of the Daily Nation. I don't know what the government is waiting for so that they can act on this. I think we've been mentioning that it's famine in Turkana since January up to right now. This is something that inakuwa highlighted kwa magazeti everyday news on social media, but I don't understand why the government is not acting on this. And that is page 26. It reads that Turkana drought relief delays persist as food remains stuck in warehouse across the region. So I don't know kwa nini jakuwa supplied, but this is something that need to be acted upon. And in addition to that, it reads that distribution hurdles keep relief food in warehouse as locals fight hunger. So, and the reason as to why they this food has not yet been released is because of, they are calling it bureaucratic, that is bottlenecks. Those are the restrictions, izo mashiria mingi mingi. We have that is the logistics and coordination failures that leave thousands of Turkana residents starving despite the the pledges. Ukiangalia currently now kumekuwa na that is recurrent drought when it comes to this place. Tumeona kumekuwa na that is chronic and food insecurity. Kumekuwa na that is livestock losses. And now the fact that wame release chakula, but apart from releasing the food, instead ifike kwenye inafaa kufika, there's been a delay. And this is not a good thing at all, because the residents, when it comes to that is Turkana, they are facing that is malnutrition risk. Kutakuwa na that is increasing malnutrition, and pia politically kutakuwa na the pressure of national and county governments, because this is something that they need to act upon. And then tukiangalia that is when it comes to the economy, kutakuwa na that is deepening poverty cycle in our country. And if you're going to have that is poverty cycle in our country, tunatembea pamoja when it comes to the dream to Singapore, because they need to make sure that they get to fill these gaps. And I can see there's a number here that is at 322 number of residents in thousands in remote village still are waiting for the food distribution, but the food has been delayed. So my prayer is that the government is going to act on this. And pia naona that is the same story matters to do with food. Page 26 here of the Daily Nation hapo chini, they're saying that there is water scarcity and hunger that drive mass migration in Baringo County. So leaders that have been entrusted by these Kenyan citizens, there is something that needs to be done for our fellow brothers and sisters. The fact that the finances are being released every year, tulisema kuna budget allocation when it comes to the world of agriculture. Something needs to be done, and making sure that there is accountability so that Kenyan citizens will not struggle when it comes to matters to do with water and food as well.
Yeah. In the Standard, as we wind up, we see that katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia something that has raised a lot of concern online yesterday. And katika gazeti hili inasema 6-month HIV jab offers relief to users who take daily pill. And this is something ambayo imezidi kuangaziwa katika gazeti la The Standard. And we see that there are some of the people ambao they've confessed of using the pill ambayo ni pre-exposure prophylaxis. And this is that was given that was launched in 2021. And unlike the oral PrEP, which must be taken every day to remain effective, lenacapavir administered to injection around the abdomen about 4 centimeters apart. And katika gazeti hili wameweza kuangazia that jab ambayo hutumika to prevent people from getting HIV. Na katika gazeti hili you see there are many of the things ambazo zimezidi kuangaziwa, some of the side effects ya the jab and the wale watu ambao wameweza kupewa the jab ambayo imeweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti hili. And we see that the national HIV situation in our country 1.3 million to 1.4 million, that is the bracket ambayo imezidi Kenyan living with HIV. That is a rise in people that are living with HIV in Kenya. And the new infection, it is there is a rise of 20,000 people recorded in 2024. And also in 2021 we see that HIV related death in 2021 was rose to 21,000. Na katika gazeti hili pia wameangazia some of the places the rollout will begin from the 15 counties ambazo zimeweza kuangaziwa, ambazo ziko na high rate ya HIV infection in our nation. And wakati ambapo utapata gazeti lako, utaweza kuangalia mambo ambayo yameweza kuangaziwa katika gazeti hili la The Standard, and some of the things ambazo zimeweza kuangaziwa hapo, you will be able to get them in deeper insight. Now, this NURU morning show is proudly brought to you by Mizpah Prayer Center, a great place for prayer and fasting and spiritual renewal. Mizpah Prayer Center invites you to Keepers of Flame ambayo inaendelea. It's a prayer summit ambayo inaendelea katika Mizpah Prayer Center, and the Keepers of Flame Prayer Summit ni summit ambayo inaendelea katika mlima huu, and kuna mambo mengi ambayo yanaendelea. It is a very powerful we have a very powerful session. And yesterday kama nilipotangulia kwa kusema ya kwamba we were told that the beauty of the fire is flame. Now, Mizpah Prayer Center is still open to individual ministry teams and different prayer groups. And if you want to book your accommodation, you will get an accommodation on this number on 0727 766 553. Angela, as we wind up, what do you say to our viewers?
For viewers, thank you so much for tuning in for today's show. We are here every morning to making sure that you stay updated of what is happening that is in our country and beyond. And sure, Jay, shall be right back that with Beyond the Headlines.
Yeah. Thank you so much to our viewers for joining us in the NURU morning show at this current affairs segment. May you have a blessed day. Thank you so much.